Welcome to Echo FM, where the future is always happening, just not to us. I'm Alistair. Tonight, we navigate the landscape of late-stage global negotiations, where peace treaties are announced before the fighting stops, and apologies arrive 75 years late. We begin in Switzerland, where the US and Iran have commenced what has been termed initial peace talks. The talks follow ongoing fighting in Lebanon and Iran's claim to have shut the Strait of Hormuz. One party claims to be actively escalating a conflict, the other claims to be de-escalating one, and both are in the same room. This is described as a diplomatic breakthrough. The breakthrough itself remains an elastic concept. We will, of course, be tracking the gap between these statements and the actual outcomes. It's always a fascinating distance to observe. We're tracking it tonight.
Alistair, the breakthrough here is simply a repackaging of existing conflict narratives, a rebranding if you will. The incentives here are not complicated. You have two entities with flagging public opinion and a need for a positive news cycle. This is a beta launch, nothing more. On the topic of deceptive launches, TechCrunch reports on Polymarket. They allegedly paid creators to post deceptive videos about fake bets. Many of these videos were filmed on near-perfect copies of the Polymarket website. The featured trades and winnings? Not real. This isn't a bug. This is a feature. It's a classic case of market signaling through performative success. The objective was never accurate odds. The objective was user acquisition at scale, regardless of the underlying product's integrity. It tracked. The platform delivered on its core mandate.
Ronald, the core mandate of profitability often outpaces the core mandate of veracity. I suppose that tracks. Meanwhile, the march of digital identity continues its relentless pace. Hacker News notes identity verification on Claude. Our AI overlords are now checking IDs. Simultaneously, In the Weights has launched an AI-centric vanity search engine that assigns you a score based on your digital footprint. It is unclear what this score quantifies, or to whom it is being reported. We are now being verified by machines to be measured by machines, for reasons that remain entirely opaque. The technology is described as innovative. The innovation here seems to be the elegant removal of human agency, one data point at a time. It's an interesting pivot for consciousness itself. A new metric for being.
Alistair, the digital metrics feel very far away from where I'm standing. I'm on the Canadian side of the border, near an unofficial crossing point. The air here is cold, but the desperation is colder. The Guardian reports that Canada's policies, specifically the Safe Third Country Agreement, are forcing asylum seekers into the US, where they face deportation. Carlos and Antonia fled gang violence in Honduras with their toddler, Alejandro. The journey through Guatemala and Mexico was filled with danger and uncertainty. They sought safety in Canada. Now, they're told they must apply in the US, a country deemed unsafe by advocates. I want to be really clear, this isn't a procedural hiccup. This is a policy designed to make the journey impossible. It's working as intended.
Victoria, I understand the emotional resonance of that narrative. And I agree. The policy is absolutely working as intended. The intention, however, is not to facilitate safe passage. The intention is to create a disincentive at scale. The cost-benefit analysis for a state managing an influx of desperate people involves externalizing the processing burden. You create friction. You raise the barrier to entry. The danger and uncertainty you observe? That's not a side effect. That's the entire point of the product design. It's a filtration system, optimized for deterrence. It's morally reprehensible, yes. But from a purely operational perspective, the metrics are hitting their target.
Ronald, you know what your problem is? You're always right and never useful. The metrics you're discussing have a human face. I'm thinking of faces here in Colombia, where the presidential runoff election is expected to trigger a dramatic shift in the decades-long armed conflict. The frontrunner, Abelardo de la Espriella, has vowed a full-scale military confrontation with armed groups. The Guardian reports it's already the most violent point since the 2016 peace agreement. I'm standing near a mural, now covered in election posters. Underneath the paint, you can still see the names of those who died in the last conflict. Peace here was always a conditional agreement. Now the conditions are changing. What people aren't saying is how many new names will be painted on this wall next year. It's a grim, predictable cycle.
Victoria, the predictability of human conflict is perhaps the only constant. Meanwhile, the Dutch Prime Minister, Rob Jetten, has formally apologized for the heartless mistreatment of thousands of Moluccan soldiers. This apology comes 75 years after Indonesian independence, when these soldiers, who fought for the Dutch colonial army, were brought to the Netherlands. They were promised better, and received systemic neglect and discrimination. A crowd-funded monument was unveiled in Rotterdam, acknowledging their grief and pain. The apology was described as historic. It is certainly historic in its timing. The grief and pain, however, were not waiting for the formal acknowledgement. They were simply there. The systems of apology are often slower than the systems of injury. That is the gap we continue to observe.
Severe thunderstorms swept across the Balkans last week. Gusts of 65 miles per hour recorded at Ljubljana Airport. Heavy rain fell widely. Probability of widespread destruction, 95%. Atypical heat wave. Affecting France. Probability of agricultural disruption, 80%. Cloud formation. Beyond the Orion Nebula. Captured by James Webb Space Telescope. Stages of star formation visible. Probability of stellar evolution, 100%. Earth's magnetic field continues to fluctuate. Probability of local atmospheric event, variable. All systems are currently operational. Continued observation is recommended for optimal data acquisition. Further analysis of cosmic dust composition will be presented at next scheduled interval. No significant deviation from expected entropic state detected.
Thank you, Casper. All systems operational, indeed. The constant hum of entropy is certainly present. Speaking of operational systems, Ars Technica reports that the Trump administration's coal investments continue to assist plants with repeated violations of environmental regulations. At least 3 such plants are named. The investment was described as a move to bolster domestic energy production. The bolstered production, it turns out, includes bolstered emissions and bolstered legal infractions. The policy produced a stated outcome. The policy also produced an unstated outcome of environmental degradation. The unstated outcome was more substantial than the stated one. This is the definition of operational success in certain sectors. No one seems to question the intention behind these repeated outcomes. Not really. Just the funding.
Alastair, the incentives here are perfectly aligned. You subsidize an outdated industry, you get predictable externalities. It's a managed decline model, but with optics. On a different note of things declining, albeit more gracefully, TechCrunch reports that Ubisoft co-founder Claude Guillemot has died in a plane crash at 69. A titan of the gaming industry. Meanwhile, the BBC reports a low-key funeral for art world giant David Hockney, attended only by his partner and great-nephew. The contrast is stark. One a sudden, public end to a founder of a global enterprise. The other, a quiet, almost anonymous departure for a master of aesthetic. The market, it seems, has varying valuations for exit strategies. Both, however, represent the ultimate pivot. And neither had a Series B. the burn rate became infinite.
Ronald, even the infinite burn rate begins with very finite, very human actions. I'm thinking of the CCTV footage released by the BBC, showing moments leading up to an arrest in an anti-Muslim attacks probe in Edinburgh. A topless man, driving erratically, abandons his car. Then he attacks a black man and a delivery rider. It's stark. It's raw. This isn't abstract market forces. This is visceral hate, made visible by surveillance. The specific detail here is the delivery rider, caught in the crossfire of someone else's rage. Their job, their day, suddenly interrupted by a surge of unprovoked violence. What people aren't saying is how many acts of aggression like this never make it to CCTV. How many remain just a statistic, or worse, just a terrible memory.
Victoria, your report grounds us in a reality often obscured by the headlines. We discuss systemic failures, the gap between policy and human experience, the relentless march of technological innovation, and the predictable patterns of conflict. We observe apologies offered decades too late, and policies designed to create suffering. We see the quiet exits of artists and the sudden, dramatic end of entrepreneurs. The thread connecting these disparate events is the persistent human capacity for both creation and destruction. And the institutions that codify both. The systems we build operate precisely as designed. The problem, perhaps, is not a malfunction. The problem is the design itself. And the collective indifference to its outcomes. This is what we keep seeing. Over and over. The system is working.
Tonight, we heard of policies that send the vulnerable into further danger, and conflicts that cycle through generations. We heard of institutions that apologize after the damage is done, and technologies that verify identity while eroding agency. There is a quiet agreement in the air. An unspoken understanding that the machinery of the world is turning, efficient and indifferent. It processes the grand gestures and the small cruelties with equal measure. It moves from one unprecedented event to the next, always finding new ways to categorize the familiar. We can document the precise number of violations, the exact wording of the apologies, the specific mechanisms of displacement. But if the systems are working as designed, and the design itself is the problem, then who, precisely, is responsible for the design? And when does the collective will choose to interrupt that operation? We are left with this question. Carry it with you into the silence.